makes magic in business like Disney. Join us as we hear from Disney cast members, influencers, and enthusiasts to uncover the secrets of what it takes behind the scenes to make Disney such a successful and well-loved brand. We will hear their journeys, inspirations, and have some good old-fashioned Disney fun along the way. So relax, pull up a chair, be our guest, and let's get down to Bippity Boppity Business. Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Bippity Boppity Business. I'm so excited to have this lovely episode with you today. Today, we're going to explore how marketing isn't just for professionals. It's something that we all actually do in our daily lives. Now, of course, this is a business podcast. So yes, we're going to learn professional concepts like attention, consistency, reward, emotional connection, all of these emotional marketing concepts. But whether you realize it or not, there's many parts of our life that we may have learned things about marketing without even realizing it. So today we're going to have a really special guest on the show. We're going to bring on Julie Christopher. She's a marketing maven who's been making your favorite brands pop for over 2 decades, from really cute brands like Peppa Pig to Elf on the Shelf. She's been behind some of the most iconic campaigns that have captured hearts across many generations. So whether she's crafting that perfect launch strategy or leading a global marketing takeover, she has this really awesome skill of being able to blend creativity and hard data to get results. But something really interesting and fun about Julie is she wasn't always a marketing maven extraordinaire. At one point, she was a former nanny too. And this episode is called From Sippy Cups to Strategy, to learn about how her experience then and also now has made her be able to be the expert that she is today, giving us some fun secrets about the marketing world. So everybody, a round of applause for Julie. Yay, Julie.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being on. So excited to have you here today.
Yeah, so happy to be here.
We've had a few conversations in the making for our podcast, but before we get into it, the backstory of you and everything, I wanted to just talk about, just the concept of marketing being everywhere without even us realizing it, right? Like there's some sort of Disney quote somewhere where it's like, there's magic everywhere you look, right? So when you were young, what was something that really spoke to you that you didn't realize was like a marketing campaign back in the day, but something that just really awe-inspired you and was like, man, like I really have to have this cool thing. For me, it was a Barbie cash register. I was like all in on the marketing of that. I didn't even know it.
Oh, yeah, there's always a Barbie dream house, right?
Yes,
That's amazing.
yes.
Yeah, I think for me it was my Care Bears bedspread. It's like you don't realize how impactful a brand is until you're actually wearing it or you're sleeping under it. And so I think for me, looking back, it's like, whoa, I was really all in on that brand. So
yeah, I bring it up because as kids we're very easily, of course, drawn to things that we love. We become super fans really easily of these brands, but as adults, there's something to be said about these brands that have that ability to appeal to the emotion of somebody deeper than face value, right? We're really appealing to the wonder or the awe or the inspiration. And throughout our conversation, we might be hinting at some of that today. But something that we really bonded over before is I was a theater kid growing up. And from what I understand, you were also a theater kid too.
I was even in our town's little traveling musical group called the Caton Kids. So we did these Broadway, numbers, and did that for nursing homes and for the Elks Club and for all those, those groups. So yeah, really fun. And then I was in local theater. So everything from, I think my very first show was Wizard of Oz, and I got to play a Munchkin. So that was, dream come true.
I got to play a Munchkin. I did a Munchkin too, but I was very butthurt that I did not get Dorothy. Like my little 7-year-old self was like, really, yeah,
exactly. Yes. Every time she was on stage, I was like, that should be me.
It should be me. I bring up this through line of being a theater kid because I think something that we maybe inherently didn't realize learn growing up being on stage is this ability of like showing up and like being a character and telling a story. Like what's something that you learned about storytelling or stage presence at that time when you were young that translates into maybe some of the work that you've done today?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to step out of yourself, right? And
Mm-hmm.
be that character and also know
Mm-hmm.
that there's an audience watching you, but don't be conscious of that. Be more about, being in that moment and telling that story and becoming part of that world. And I think in marketing and especially in kind of the businesses that I've been in, which are kid and family focused, it's
Mm-hmm.
really storytelling is so important and getting
Mm.
those kids wrapped up in that brand and in, everything that comes with it. So you really have to believe in it yourself and kind of, just become that character, become that part of the whole story. So
Yeah, and speaking of story, let's really bring yours to light so we can get into the topic here. So, we'll skip over some details, but Julie has a really awesome cat that was adopted from Howard Stern's wife. So follow her to maybe see a follow-up piece of content related to that story. And she's also a self-taught chef, and you were on a really cool episode of The Chew, like involved with it back in 2012. But I think something that was really interesting to me about your story, your backstory, was how you put yourself through college working as a full time nanny and babysitter. And from what I understand, you credit to some of that experience being your first taste of marketing to kids and families. Tell me a little bit about the start of that journey and some things that you learned throughout that time as a caregiver.
yeah, absolutely. I think that for me, that was like my first kid marketing 101, right? And I
Mm,
think I got this job with this amazing family, two little boys, and we're actually still in touch today. I've been to weddings and graduations and birthday dinners, and just so lovely to be a part of, still
mhm,
be a part of their family. But for me, as I was taking, my marketing courses and kind of applying what I was learning to my daily, interactions with these kids, like I got to see firsthand, what got them excited, what made their imaginations go crazy, what made them giggle till they couldn't stop. And it
mhm,
just really, really learned there were probably four or five things that came through with, during that time. I think the biggest thing is that all of those things that I learned are applicable to marketing, right?
mm.
Today, still. And that was, 2 decades ago almost. So it was,
Yeah.
very, very much, thinking about, or more than two, I don't know what year is it? I don't know.
Who
But
knows? I don't even know what day it is, so it's fine.
but really, one of the things was capturing attention. Like,
Mm.
I don't know if you've ever sat down with a toddler and tried to play a
Yes.
game or watch a movie. It's not going to happen. Like, they are going to
It's
get
just
distracted
not.
immediately. And it's just, you just got to go with it. And I think that's the same thing. Like, in marketing, you have to capture attention immediately,
Mm.
or the audience is going to move on to something else. And so, really, like I said, basic marketing 101, but so, so important.
Mm.
The other thing I think is consistency, right? Doing what you say you're going to do and kind of creating a routine is really important with kids. And the same
Mhm.
thing with when you're marketing, it's like build that trust, let people know that they're going to get quality from you every time. They're going to get this certain aspect from you every single time, and don't surprise them and be like, oh, you can have chocolate milk, but actually it's water.
Yes.
You really have to stay true to that piece of it. So I think that was a learning. Another learning is rewards really work.
Mhm.
So, that positive reinforcement of potty training or learning the ABCs and then rewarding that with a treat is so, works so well with kids, but also works really well in marketing. So those loyalty rewards, VIP, surprise and delights,
And isn't that
special,
like what Instagram all is just
right.
like hearts, liking, reward, like
Yes.
here's your sticker, like
Immediate.
good job, you know what I mean? It's like that for kids, but I feel like we see that too as adults in marketing whether we
Right.
realize it or not.
Yeah, it's like that immediate reward is on social to like get that, that like. So I
Yes.
think that was one. What else? I think definitely emotion driving action. So
Mhm.
I learned way back in my class, it's like they're not buying a product, they're buying how you make them feel about the product. And with
Mhm.
kids, like in the middle of a meltdown, it's like you can see how quickly pulling out that favorite stuffy, stops that meltdown because there's that emotional connection and it's kind of that
Mm.
calming piece of it. So again, like really making sure that in marketing, you're not just, creating messaging that's selling the product, but you're actually selling something bigger and selling that
Right.
feeling. So I think that's it. And then one of the things that's so important now, especially to millennials and to Gen Zers, is personalization. And
Mhm.
what kid, like going back to my Care Bear's bedroom too, like having, if you are a fan of some brand or some toy or some show, like you want that everywhere. And
Mhm.
so, with the boys, if one of them loved pandas, I wasn't going to read them a story about trucks, right? At bedtime, we're gonna read about pandas. We're gonna read about
Yes.
bears, and really make sure that connection is made. And kids love to put their names on everything. They love just to show it's theirs. And so I think again, just using that and tapping that into marketing and really making sure personalization and feeling like you own something, for
Mhm.
our customers is really important. So
Yeah, those
yeah, it
are
was
really
such a
powerful.
fun time. Yeah, so great.
I love that you are able to say like, "Hey, I in babysitting and nannying these kids, I learned 5 or didn't even realize it, and like getting your marketing degree, you learned 5 key things that literally
Yep.
any marketer would need to learn how to do." So I'm gonna read them back so everyone can maybe just simmer on it. So, catching attention, consistency slash routine, the power of rewards and reinforcement, emotion driving action, and personalization. Now, my question to you, Julie, is in your experience in working with brands, which of these do you find that people most often do, and which of them you find that people often skip over or don't think about in their day to day marketing?
Yeah, I think personalization is one that people tend to think of last because it's sometimes it's the most expensive or it's the most
Mm,
time consuming, because if you really do want to get personal with your fans and with your audience, you literally have to write emails and make sure that it's not saying just a blanket email. It's something that's very
right.
personalized. So I think that people kind of put that on the side to like, oh, we'll think about that later. But I do think capturing attention is something marketers do really well. I mean, if you look at the Super Bowl ads, or if you
Mm-hmm.
look at just some of the amazing campaigns that have been happening. It is really about like those sit up moments where people are just like, okay, or even on social, like capturing your
Right.
attention with an image or a video or a reel or something that you can't stop looking at or watching. I think the marketing does that really well.
You brought up this Super Bowl and something that I saw that my fiance showed me. He was like, because I don't watch the Super Bowl because I'm a theater kid because I don't watch sports, but like whatever, he rounds it up and shows it to me. He showed me how Disney did this thing where like Stitch was like running across like the football field and
Mhm.
making it like causing chaos, and it was like this whole promotion of like the new Stitch movie coming out. And I just think that's such a creative way to catch attention. It's like I football probably wasn't always the immediate adjacent like aha place where we would want to capture attention for that type of market, maybe when Disney
Right.
first started out, right? But to consider like where is my audience when they're not in my theme, in my business, are interacting with my business or buying my product or on my website, like where do they spend their time outside of what we do, and how do we capture that attention? Like that's just so cool and interesting to me.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see it. I think, I mean, yeah, I mean, and all these partnerships that you would never think of, that are
Mhm.
suddenly happening. And what did I just see? Hidden Valley Ranch um, cookies, or like, it's just crazy, like
Yes.
the things that are
Yes.
happening, and it makes sense because why not? Like, why not?
Yes.
Customers and consumers will tell you if they don't want it, but most people want that exciting thing or that really fun, limited edition piece
Mhm.
of product, or that story that they hadn't thought of before. So yeah, I think it makes lots of sense as long as it's authentic and it's not just forced. Like, that
Right.
the Stitch commercial was perfect and really cute, and I think it was one of the very first ones to kick off the game.
Mhm.
And I didn't watch for the game, I watched for the commercials. So
Yes. See? I think we understand, like,
yeah,
being, like, in liking content or marketing or whatever. We're
right,
like, "I'm here for, like, "This is my show," is the
right,
commercials.
right.
Yeah,
But it
"This is
didn't.
my Super Bowl."
Exactly. Exactly, but it didn't feel like you didn't watch it and be like, "Huh." It was like, "Oh,
Yes.
yeah," like, it made sense. I think as long as it makes sense, the collaborations or using unusual, um, you know, messaging, I think always
Mhm.
is worth a try.
I had a question I wanted to bring up based on something you said earlier that stood out to me was calling your customers fans. And I think
Mhm,
in the toy media themed entertainment space, this is not a foreign concept. Like viewing your ideal client or your customer as a fan.
mhm,
But in other facets of business, maybe B2B or maybe just like a different enterprise model, not within those verticals. The concept of calling someone a fan is not so common, but I would love to understand, like, what is the premise of how impactful that can be? Like the shift of story mindset when you, instead of viewing your customer as a customer, you view them as a fan. Like, how does that differ in strategy and mindset overall when you're really trying to appeal and market to that person?
I think that that's like the first step in creating that loyalty and creating
Mm,
that you know customer that comes back more than once,
mm,
right? Because you have the moment where you're building the buzz and people are just starting to hear about your brand or your show or whatever it is, and they're getting excited about it. But then when they become a fan, right, and they have that brand love, that piece of it where they're actually going to go buy product and they're going to watch 3 seasons in one night, and they're
mm-hmm,
going to tell their friends about it and start following you on social and doing all these things, then you have your fan, and that's who you can really start to get to sign up for your newsletter or get to do
mm-hmm,
things for you or pay tickets to go to a live show, which they might not have done if they were just a casual customer. And so I think
mm-hmm,
that goes from the fan base, then goes to the loyalty base phase where they become like ambassadors for you. So if you don't
mm,
focus on them as fans, it's a little harder to kind of have that journey of them, becoming these like I said, ambassadors for your brand, which is so important. And they will, carry that on to their families and their next generation. Like with, I worked on Peppa Pig, and
yes.
really, the show's been out for 20 years, and it's like generations are watching that, and they will continue to watch it. And I think they just announced Mommy Pig is pregnant with a baby, so
Oh, and
it's like
we're
it's gonna keep
invested in
going.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
so, I think that's so beautiful, like to understand that, when you're trying to create content for your business, you also have the opportunity to create a legacy for your brand. And I
Yeah.
think storytelling is one of the only ways to really like make that possible, like consistently, right? So tell me more a little bit about your amazing, like, marketing experience that you've had where you've used storytelling to really, like, make successful campaigns happen. Like, do you have any examples of like something that you worked on that we would just like love to learn or hear from either Peppa Pig or Disney or any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're gonna talk about Disney, so PJ
Mhm.
Masks
Yes.
launched on Disney Junior back in 2016, and I was just new to Entertainment One, which owned the show and was doing the licensing and all of that for it, and working with Disney Junior to launch it. And it was supposed to be launching later in the year, potentially early 2017, and Disney decided, oh, we're going to bump it up and it's going to come out in the fall of 2016. And so we weren't ready, didn't have, all the beautiful marketing toolkits and assets that we needed. And so it was kind of a mad rush to get everything together for that. But the beauty of it is that brand, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they were superheroes. They go into the night to
Hmm.
save the day. So they, in their pajamas, they turn into these superheroes at night when they go to bed and fight evil and, and come back home and spend the day at school with like as normal kids. And so it was
Yes.
this exciting opportunity to take that and create this fandom again in this world, for kids to get behind. And when it came
Mm.
out, it was an immediate hit. And so immediately people were like, oh, we want product, we want toys, we want all this stuff. Now it's even because we're fans of the show. And of course, we weren't ready for that either, right? Because we're thinking toys usually come out the next year. And so
Yes.
we spent that whole time leading up to holiday, of 2017, building excitement for these toys that were coming out, and teasing it at Comic-Con, and
Mm.
having exclusive items, and having all these really amazing events, and just really getting people excited. So when the products did come out, they sold out. It was amazing. And it
Mm.
became this story of at the beginning, we were all just like, oh my gosh, Russell, run around with your head cut off. And then it became this amazing experience. And the show, was on number one on Netflix for a long time, and streaming, and just really well loved by everybody. So I think that was
I,
such a great experience.
I mean, that's phenomenal to be able to do that in such a short time period. To not
Yeah.
only create this world, right? This brand for those who are listening. I mean, I think it's world building. What's what branding really
Yeah.
it is. But to create this world, create this concept, get it out, and then not only it be successful, but then people just like love it, like for
Yeah.
in such a short time. And I think that's such an interesting case study because how many businesses like do you know that try to launch a product or a service and it just like is left on dead ears, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What about, to kind of dive into more about what a good launch looks like teasing it, like
Mhm.
priming your audience. What about those things can help a business, and tactically, like what are some ways to do that, like just generally speaking?
Yeah, I think you need to have a mix of traditional like paid media, digital,
Yeah.
social, all of that. But I think you also really need to get in front of your audience. And so, any time you can do something live, so a
Mm,
pop-up or a meet and greet or, a mini live show or appearance at a trade, like Comic-Con, have the
mm-hmm.
mascot walk around. I think that's really important because you need to blend both of those things. Because I think what I've read lately, especially about Gen Alpha and Gen Beta, who is just arriving here in 2025, is that they want a mix of that. They want digital, but they also want some in real life experiences as well. So I think we need to continue to make sure that we're doing that. But when you
Mm,
launch, it's thinking about who are you trying to reach, where, like what's the goal? Is it to sell product? Is it to get people to become fans? Like so, I think you have to figure
mm-hmm.
all of that out first. But you need to have that mix of kind of like the digital and the ads and the social and that piece of it, influencers of course, and but again, adding that kind of live element is really important.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that because I think a lot of brands will, or businesses will, consider their online presence, but they neglect to really think about how the experiential in person presence can play into that. And, you know, I think that toy themed experiences, like those types of brands, they just do a really good job of it. But I think part of it is because they've built this kind of like person to connect to, this
Hmm.
like mascot, this persona, whether it's a group of people like PJ Masks or Mickey Mouse, like there's this like developed character. How do you think that could translate for a founder, like maybe through a personal brand? Like do you feel
Hmm.
like that's an important component to all the other stuff that we talked about to it being successful, or is that not necessarily that important for all the other things to be relevant?
No, I think if you're going to be a brand and sell yourself as a brand or sell your company as a brand, you
Mhm.
need that brand Bible, right? That the folder. I'm going like this because they're like ginormous,
Yes.
pieces of information. Now they're probably all digital, but again, aging myself. But it's everything from the tone of voice to the keywords to your colors to your
Mhm.
all of that is so important because you want to be, again, like we talked about, consistency, right? You want to be
Mhm.
consistent, and you want people to get used to seeing you in this way, and knowing that these are
Mm.
your buzzwords and this is what you're going to usually talk about, this is what your focus is. And I think having branding around that and having like a toolkit and being able to build that story and build that world around whatever it is really
Mhm.
important.
What would you say to the person that's like, okay, yeah, I definitely want to do this for my business, but I don't want to be the face of it? Like, how do I still give my brand a personal voice and feel like people can connect to it as a person when there's not a thing or one person to connect to?
Yeah, I mean, could you do it in some other way? Can you create some little figurehead for yourself,
Yeah.
to represent your brand? Do you have a certain font style or logo
Mm.
that is easily recognizable that people will immediately attach to your brand? So I think you still need something for people
Mhm.
to latch onto, but it doesn't necessarily have to be yourself, but you need some
Yeah.
kind of spokesperson or spokes thing, I would
Yeah, like
say.
ambassador of some way. I think Duolingo does a really good
Yeah.
job of like being like a traditional software type thing, but they've created this whole story with the owl. I don't know if you saw recently, but they made this
Passed
random.
away, right?
Yeah. And it was like this whole like buzz thing about the owl dying. And like that's what I'm talking about, is like that's storytelling. And you're now
Yep.
we're like invested in the story of the
Right,
owl. It's
right.
it's an app, like we're invested in this dang owl. But I also think that it's the consistency overall of like whoever you pick, like it has to be the same type of vibe every single
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like you can't be Duolingo one day and then like, I don't know, Zillow another day or whatever.
No.
Which another question, this is like very random and off the cuff, but like for example, a brand like Zillow, right? Like there's not really a person to connect to. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
They sell this online thing that they have. Like what are some more creative ways that maybe a brand like of that type or nature
Mhm.
could really stand out and do some innovative stuff based on some of your experience, and that could translate, in from the toy or themed experiences world, like into that?
Yeah, and we're talking about Zillow, like the real estate.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think for that, it's almost turning the camera around, right? And looking at
Mm,
who the customer is. And so could you talk to some real life Zillow customers who found their dream home or their dream
mhm,
apartment, and or why they chose Zillow over other competitors. So I think in that
mhm.
way, it becomes real, right? And it becomes something that people feel that emotion, that emotionally
Yes,
attached to that, because that's like me. I'm looking for this too. So I
yes,
think that could be a tactic. And I think also humor works really well. And I think if you take something
yes.
that's more serious and add a little humor to it, like home buying or doing any of that, I think that also opens up a door for people to take notice.
Humor is such an underrated storytelling tactic that I think a lot of businesses don't necessarily know how to exactly do because they're like, oh, I don't want to like make fun of my brand or this or that. But back to your experience, as a, back in the day when you were nannying the kids, I mean, humor is how we like bond and connect, like age regardless. Like we tell
Yes.
stories, and if you can laugh and have a shared experience where you laugh with somebody, it's almost more memorable in a way. And I don't know,
Oh,
what are
yeah.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think having a sense of humor means automatically you probably don't have an ego, right? Like I
Yeah.
think you're I think you're if you're able to laugh at yourself, that's like a great trait, and I look for that in
Mhm.
everybody that I'm friends with too. It's like you have to have a sense of
Mm.
humor. Like we
Yeah.
cannot take ourselves so seriously. And with kids for sure, it's like you can take that moment of that, almost meltdown and make a funny face or do a funny dance and, avert the chaos of that
Yes.
immediately. So it works so easily with them. But I think just in real life, like I think if we laugh more, it's definitely healthier, and it's just one of those things that doesn't cost anything either. So
Right. There are so many like, what we're trying to get at here is like there's so many ways that you can attract your audience, we don't want to say client because we want to like kind of play to that audience, like that your new fan that
mhm.
that appeal to emotion that don't really cost that much. And I think it just has to do with the overarching like story overall.
Yeah.
What's another experience that you've had in your career where storytelling was a really big component that led to success with your initiative that you worked on.
Yeah, I would say so. My Little Pony. I worked
Yes.
on as part of Hasbro for a while, and worked on My Little Pony as they were getting ready to launch the new Netflix film that came out in 2021. And as we know, My Little Pony is a nostalgia brand. Like we all
Mhm,
have a relationship with My Little Pony, and so
mhm.
do girls that are younger than us that are growing up, experiencing it for the first time. And there's also this fan base called Bronies, who
Yeah.
are these hardcore My Little Pony fans. And as a marketer, it's how do you reach them all? And they're
Mhm.
very different. And having a social presence, trying to reach all of them in the same way does not work. And so we did some research and we talked to the bronies and we tried to figure out what worked best for them, while also trying not to alienate, the nostalgia moms and these new
Mhm.
kids, coming into the world. And I will say, storytelling is a big part of that, and being able to bring your fans into your story and bring them into, hey, this is what we want to be doing. Like, what could we be doing better for you? What do you want? Like, was such a game changer, because then we were able to, keep those bronies happy, but also keep mom and the kids really happy too, and then make it feel like this special launch for everyone.
That's so impactful because of a couple of things. This is a common problem that people can and and encounter with their brand, like when there's different ICPs, right? When there's different types of personas that are interested in your brand. Sometimes somebody trying to work on a campaign of that nature can be really overwhelmed with like, well, how do we appeal to everyone? Like we're supposed to be
Right.
niched, but we also want to appeal to everyone, but we also don't. Like, do you know what I mean? Like is it the data that helps inform those decisions? Like, what kind of data are you like researching or looking at? Like, I have no idea about any of that stuff. So, like, where would you even begin? Would like
Yeah,
to
I mean,
understand that.
social habits is like who does what. It's,
Mhm,
you can behind every single thing that you experience online, there is a bunch of data for a marketer to collect and help figure
mhm,
out what to do next and what to do better the next time. And so really it's understanding the habits, and there's not just like the shopping habits, but the social habits and the viewing
mhm.
habits, and all of that coming together, I think really helps kind of paint that picture of like how best should we be reaching these people, and really keeping them engaged in the brand. There's all kinds of everybody talks about ratings and all these great
Mhm.
things when you're talking, especially about an upcoming movie. But I think it really is understanding that engagement piece. And for a while, there was the buzzword, the ROE, the return on engagement,
Hmm.
instead of ROI. And I think as marketers, ROI is still very important, especially to our
Especially
bosses.
if you're executive board, they'll be like, "Great, people liked your post. Good for you. You want a sticker? Like, we
Right.
have to make our quota." Like, yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, ROI is very important. But this ROE that
Yeah.
was floating around for a while, it was like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, it is like what was return on engagement, return on emotion, return
Mhm.
on experience. And I think that also as marketers, we have to remember that too, because we're not always selling something tangible. And
Mhm.
so how do you keep people engaged and excited? And I think keeping, and so that ROE is kind of like looking at those habits and looking at how they're responding, and kind of making sure that you're aware of all of that before you create a campaign.
That's amazing. I it fascinates me to be able to have the type of mind where you can look at data and find a way to see numbers that make a story out of the
Yep.
numbers. Like, what's one thing that you've learned, like, from all of this experience of, like, looking at data that always, like, that helps you in future campaigns? Like, is there a type of metric that people overlook, or is it something else? Just what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's more about always looking at the data, not just waiting until something's over or before you're ready to launch something. Like you need to
Mhm.
consistently be looking at that, and even afterwards, like go back and is anybody still going back on that site and clicking? Are they still doing
Mm.
that? And so I think it's constantly looking at that and being able to pivot and being. I know that's a marketing word everybody hates, but it's like, you know.
Pivot is such a friends thing here.
But you need to be able to say, hey, that's not working. And that's not wait 6 months to realize it's not working. That's like figure that
Mm.
out. So I think for me, that's the biggest thing. It's the numbers and the data coming from everywhere. It's, it can be overwhelming, but the whole point is to just be consistent. Again, our favorite word today,
Yes.
consistent with, tracking that and then being able to respond to it and adjust as needed. Because if you only, focus on it, once or twice or every quarter, like that's not going to help you with anything.
That's so true. Okay, we're gonna switch gears and we're gonna go into like the Disney fun side of the conversation now. The business of the bippity boppity.
Okay.
And this is like completely off the cuff. This is just I want to workshop this live with you here. So
Okay.
I want you to pretend that Mary Poppins knocked on your door and she said,
Mhm.
"Hey Julie, I heard you were a really, you have this marketing experience. You were also a nanny. Like, this is really cool. I'm launching a coaching business for other nannies who like really want to, like, make this a business for themselves. And I want to make a website, I want to make a brand behind it, but I am practically perfect in every way and I overthink everything and I don't even know where to start." So how would we help Mary Poppins with her coaching consulting
Oh my gosh. Well,
business? Where would you even begin? Yeah.
I mean, immediately I think of her bag, and I'm like, we have to
Yeah.
have that bag being some kind of icon for us, like branding in the bag. Like I don't know,
Yes,
but
yes.
but yeah, I mean, luckily everybody knows Mary Poppins, right? She's well
Right,
known and she's well loved, so win-win there. So that's not going to
right.
be, PR is going to be a breeze. But I think, but yeah, it's kind of, what's her story that she wants to
Mhm,
focus on? Because we all know her story, but is there something that we don't know? Because I think for when you get to
mhm.
celebrities and you get to brands that have been around forever and ever, you kind of are like, yeah, I know, I get it. We know what it
Mhm.
is. We know what to expect. And just like I said with Peppa, with Mommy Pig now being pregnant with another piggy,
Yeah.
another baby, it's new and it's fresh. And so again, you have to
Mm.
keep things fresh. So I would kind of want to sit down with her and just kind of have her tell me all of her secrets, I guess, or things that we
Yeah.
didn't know about her, and then use that to help build out her branding and her messaging. Because I think people would think automatically want to hear from her and have
Mhm.
her be their their leader when it comes to this. But I think
Mhm.
what is it that could make them connect with her even better.
I love that, and that's a really good point. I never really considered the aspect of not a of a brand that's been around for a while that wants that bit of a refresh, like how that could be difficult to build a news story. Like,
Mhm.
how do you refresh a brand that's been around forever and ever and ever, and still keep its integrity and its core in line? It's a very difficult balance,
Yeah.
especially with nostalgia brands too. It's like you have to honor what happened back then, but also make something new for the next generation
Right,
too.
right. Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. And you can't all of a sudden like, make it be night and day either. People will
Yeah,
not go for that. So,
that's very
yeah,
cool. Okay,
yeah.
another Disney character has come to you just now. In this case, it's Moana, and Moana has come to you, and she wants to start a retreat of some sorts, like on her island, to help people that are trying to wayfare and find their way emotionally, like they're on their own journeys. And she wants to make kind of like a business slash personal retreat out of it, because she's also like kind of like the semi quasi queen of the island and wants to bring tourism to it too. So maybe that's the thing. But either way, she comes to you, and let's pretend in this instance not a lot of people know about Moana as much, of course, maybe as Mary Poppins. She has some
Mhm.
sort of a following, but she's not like a big name.
Right, right.
Where would you start? Where would you start to help Miss Moana out?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's like sounds like an amazing kind of spa therapy
Yeah,
session
yeah,
experience. So,
yes.
and will The Rock be there? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh, I mean, he has to be there. Like, yeah. I mean, who else is gonna say you're welcome as they leave, like every day? Like, thank you, you're welcome. Like that's a branded thing that can
Right,
happen.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think I would definitely look at her fan base kind of and try to find similar. So I think probably start with Gen Z.
Mm,
And I think because I think there's a really exciting thing with Gen Z that they are open to a lot of things, but they also have this nostalgia, but they
mm,
also want things that kind of comfort or that feel
mm,
safe. And so I think everything she's offering sounds like an amazing, amazing thing. So I'd probably start with some influencers in that kind of like
mm,
that spa therapy kind of, self care space and
mm-hmm.
kind of start reaching out to them to start, doing some sneak peeks and kind of workshopping with her is probably what I would do. But
That's pretty
and also
cool.
probably some travel agents too, because I think they,
Yeah.
are a dying breed, but we really need them. So
We need travel agents, man. We
yes,
really do. There are so many instances where I'm trying to like book a business trip where I'm just like, someone else needs to be the professional here,
right,
because it's
right,
not me. It's
yeah. So
not me.
they can handle all the details. So.
That's really awesome, Julie. All right. And then, tell me a little bit about some shows, they can be Disney, they can be not, that as a kid that really spoke to you, like storytelling wise, emotionally. Is there a favorite character or story
Mm.
that has stood out to you that comes to mind?
I think I was one of the my very first Disney experiences was seeing Bambi, and I
Oh,
think and I
that's traumatic.
it's
Okay.
very traumatic, but I lived kind of in the country, and my dad was a hunter, and I remember being so
Oh,
mad at him afterwards, and being so upset, and just
how could
heart
you,
being
Dad?
broken as this little girl. But I think the resilience of that of Bambi and the kind of those themes of Disney where it's like Bambi was a prince, and Bambi has
Mm,
his sidekicks, with Thumper
mm.
and what was the skunk Flower,
Yes.
and so almost every Disney, experience includes like that the prince or princess and then little sidekicks. And it's I think even
Mhm.
with Bambi, it was like starting to build that world and kind of that
Mhm.
expectation. So looking back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's interesting.
You're like,
But
"That's interesting."
yeah,
I
so I love
I
Bambi.
Anything
Yeah.
else that's more recent that spoke to you?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm an oldie. I'm a classic
That's
person.
okay.
I
I
think
love that.
yeah, yeah, and I think we 101 Dalmatians too. I think Cruella
Okay,
is like
underrated, okay?
yes,
I
yes,
I think she'd be crazy to work with, but I also
yep.
feel like if I had a campaign and I could work with Cruella de Vil on a campaign, it'd be a fire campaign, wouldn't
Yes,
it?
yeah, I mean, all that woman needs is a therapist and a stylist to tell her that polka dots don't work for everybody and just move on, and I think
That's it. That's all
yeah,
she needs. That's amazing.
yeah.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for spending time with me on Bippity Boppity Business today. Before we wrap up, is there anything that I didn't ask today that you wish I would have asked you today?
Hmm. I don't know, I feel like we talked about some really great things. So,
Okay.
and I'm yeah, really, I don't think so unless you want a recipe. Otherwise I'm good.
Okay, drop the recipe. I'm trying to be better at cooking. Maybe something from the chew. I don't know. I don't
Yes.
know. That's amazing. Well, yeah, I really appreciate your time. For anyone who wants to stay connected with you or maybe learn more about you, how can they do that?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Julie Powell Christopher, or I'm on Instagram at @gourmess. So,
Ooh,
yep.
love that. All right, everyone. Well, this has been Bippity Boppity Business. I hope you all have a great day, and we will catch you on the next one. We need to cue the rollout tape. Da 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 da. Let's find it first because I can't really find it yet. For some reason, here it is. Okay, bye. You've been listening to Bippity Boppity Business. Like what you hear so far? Leave us a review in Apple or listen to us anywhere you prefer listening to your podcast. Until next time, have a magical day.